to let the audience know it's been a very hard time for them. They're actually grieving, and so they're trying to come out here and hold it out for you. And that's because we had some COVID absences, because two of our members, our playwright, Carolyn Dunn, and also our, who's missing? Colleen Madison, who came down also. They're both sick, and so they're trying to feel a lot of things. But what I do want to say is that it was a beautiful performance, Samantha. And this is to talk about the work that we've been doing together. And so I'm kind of standing in, I think, a little bit for Carolyn, who put together this beautiful PowerPoint for you. So I think that we can start to talk, right? Where do you want to start?
You would like to start? What about us? No, I'm kidding. This is kind of the order that we're going to go in. We're going to start with the very beginning and the formation of how we all came together. Samantha and I kind of came in at the end, sort of. Anita invited, I know myself, I'm one of the co-founders of the International Indigenous Youth Council, which is a grassroots organization that started in Standing Rock. And so myself with a couple of others of the International Indigenous Youth Council were invited by Anita to come and participate in a workshop in Sault Ste. Marie. And it was a storytelling workshop, as I can believe, if I can remember correctly. And in our ways as Indigenous people, for a lot of us, we don't tell stories in the summertime. By the way, this was in June. And we don't tell our stories in the summertime. The only time we tell our stories or do any type of storytelling is in the wintertime. And so it was kind of like, as you all know, like bad juju to kind of do that. So it ended up being actually a very beautiful experience because I have not ever been to Sault Ste. Marie, and I don't know if any of you in this room, besides maybe John, has been to Sault Ste. Marie. It's a very beautiful place where, you know, the Anishinaabe Ojibwe people are from and live, and so to be able to see their land and see the way that they live and participate in some of their gatherings and participate in some of their ceremonies and eat some of their traditional food was very beautiful and a wonderful experience. And what came with that was, you know, the Anishinaabe Theater Exchange. We knew that Samantha was in theater at Bain Mills Lake State University and was in the theater program there. So we did know that there was some theater going on. And I can let the two of them talk about that a little bit, but I came in at the very end. Literally, someone needed to play a part in Frederick Queen, which is a play made and written by Carolyn Dunn, who is not here with us right now. And literally, I had not even 24 hours to play this part, this 60-year-old elder, and I did. And it you know, short story. Really fast, theater is my life, and back when, you know, I hadn't done theater in so long, and so when Anita asked me if I would do that, I was like, why not? So I went ahead and did it, and it just kind of came back to me, and here I am, back in it full throttle. So I'll pass it to them.
So, I guess the place to start would be the beginning.
Yeah.
About 7 years ago, I had met Anita Gonzalez. I was taking classes, Anishinaabe and Pinay, at the Bay Mills Indian Community College in Bay Mills, Michigan, getting my bachelor's in the language. And at that time I lived on Sugar Island. The only way on or off the island was by ferry, and then another 20-minute drive to the college. My teacher at the time had notified me that there was going to be a workshop on the island at the Mary Murray building. And there would be some of the language there, so I could go there and get my credits. So I did. And that's when I first met Anita. She had a class up there from Ann Arbor. They were doing a native corn gathering and drying class. I fell in love with her right away. She just had that personality. Fell in love with her students, amazing, amazing people. And we kept in contact, and it was about a year later Cecil Pavlot, one of our very dear traditional elders in our community, confronted me and said, you know, we're going to be doing a play. You should come down and audition. I think you'd be perfect for it. Okay, yeah, why not? I've never had any formal training, but I mean, it's something that I love. So I came down and I walked in and I looked and I'm like, it's you! It's you! So, mind you, I was 6 months pregnant at the time, so I was going to the house. So we talked about this play, and that was A Sliver of a Full Moon by Mary Catherine Nagel. Yes, and it was a very beautiful and moving piece, and it really touched my heart. And at that moment, that's when I decided this is it. We had Colleen Medicine with us. She was playing a very powerful part as well. All the women that were involved were telling stories of the women who had been, oh God, I don't even know where to begin with that. They were very abused women in every sense of the manner. And it really touched all of us, because most of us come from abusive homes, abusive lives, and there was a few times when we broke down trying to do this performance, but we made it through. It was after that we decided to create the Anishinaabe Theater Exchange, because we felt that it was important for our stories to get out into the world. It's important to give all of those women and children and men that have been murdered and missing and abused, we need to give them a voice, because right now they don't have one. So we created this, and it's flourished since then. So I'm going to pass it on to someone else.
Did we cover that, Samantha? Anything you'd like to add? Yeah? Okay. So next we have Three Sisters by the amazing Carolyn Dunn, who I'm so sad you cannot meet today. This was at the University of Michigan residency. Amazing. Three Sisters is also about missing or murdered Indigenous women. Very powerful piece that, again, those of us that have been physically or verbally abused in the past, it makes us, it's hard, but it's also easy to play the part, I'd like to say. Kind of comes natural.
I was going to say it's healing too.
Healing, that's very true. Thank you for saying that. Anything that you guys would like to add about Three Sisters?
And we miss Carolyn Dunn who wrote it.
And we miss Carolyn Dunn who wrote it. And that we have just like 5 more minutes, they told me to tell you. So we'll move through them. 50 cents a pound. I'll talk some about that because I can. So it was written by Rebecca. And can I tell a story about how that happened? I was buying fish in Ann Arbor, and I wanted to go visit them, and I knew I was supposed to bring a gift, so I thought, bring fish, and I thought, that's dumb, they had fish. So when I went up there, I told them I hadn't brought them a fish, and I said, the fish I was gonna buy was like $20, and they said, yeah, they only give us 50 cents a pound, right? And then Rebecca talked about how she wanted to tell the story of the fishermen in the Great Lakes and how the loss of fishing rights had happened, and so we created a piece called 50 cents a pound. She interviewed the elders, they wrote the text, and then they were able to create a play that was done with movement to represent the feelings of the Great Lake, and the elders came in and spoke about, the elders who were involved in what they call the fish wars came and talked about that. Yeah? And then this is again from the Michigan residency. I'd rather kind of move through the slides and then you guys can talk. I'm not going to talk about the 7 grandfather teachings. You can do that, Samantha.
It is on. So, the 7 grandfather teachings, the Nijwasoi Mishomasag, as we say it, we, as the Anishinaabe Theater Exchange, we do things, obviously, through an indigenous lens, specifically Anishinaabe. And one of the things that we do is, you can call it grounding, you can call it whatever you want, but the 7 grandfather teachings are, they're up there, yeah, they're up there. Love, respect, bravery, honesty, humility, wisdom, and truth. So we use all of these things to make sure that the stories we're telling are being told in a good way, because we believe as, I want to say as Indigenous people, but I'm not sure, there's over 500 and some tribes, so I can't speak for all of them, but specifically as Anishinaabe people, there's no word for art in our language, because we believe that everything is art and held in that sacred way. We believe that storytelling specifically is used as a conduit for knowledge and wisdom and teachings. And so one of the things that we do is we use these 7 grandfather teachings as a way to tell those stories in a good way.
We'll just move forward.
Okay, talk about why don't you let you talk about what we just did there?
Yeah, and just to, kind of tag into the 7 grandfather teachings, Carolyn and I also have our own theater company, and, we also use those as our grounding point of how we work in the room. And, as a Mohawk woman, I was, got brought into this process, to direct How We Go Missing, and, I introduced myself as a Mohawk woman and pointed out, positionally that, we've had a traditional alliance, with Anishinaabe people, going back and forth between the borders. But the grandfather teachings also ground how we work, right? Not only in how we tell stories, but how we relate to each other in the room. How We Go Missing was an amazing process in the days that we worked with each other in residence this week, written by Carolyn and Samantha while they were in residence up at Double Edge Theater. And it addressed murdered and missing women specifically, but also other ways in which Indigenous women go missing. There was a character that had Alzheimer's based on Carolyn's mother. There was a character that lost her daughter to murdered and missing women crisis, and her grief caused her to disappear. So there's a number of different ways in which women go missing. And the story isn't complete. This is a play in development, and we've had conversations that we need to bring in the men's voices, the two-spirit people from our nations. And the way that Samantha and Carolyn wrote the play, they brought in a couple of elements of Indigenous dramaturgy. Carolyn and Samantha both being musicians. The script was quite musical. So we first, took a real deep dive in looking at the language, right? Because there were moments of long monologues where the women tell their stories. And so they were quite long and quite measured in which they revealed their stories. And then there were moments of the dialogue where it really flipped along. So we really had to pay attention to that language. There was also the way in which Samantha and Carolyn wrote, where the story weaving that was developed by the Spider Woman Theater, where it incorporates multiple Native narratives, so the multiple women's stories and voices, also using contemporary music, contemporary dance, traditional song, objects. So it premised the story on the beating circle at 7. Can we flip to that slide? Yes. Beating circle here at 7. So it's set up where these women gather in a beating circle, right? And as the story progresses, you get the idea that, oh, this isn't merely happening on Earthside, right? These women have crossed over. And one of the characters played by Samantha shows up, and she's not really quite sure where she is, right? And she's starting to get her bearings and figure out what happened. Her memory is not quite there. And as the women tell their stories as to what happened to them and how they arrived at the beating circle at 7, there is a healing that occurs, and there's also a bringing in of this new member to the beating circle at 7. that also harkens to the story weaving. And there's also what is called the ceremonial performativity. That's also a unique indigenous dramaturgy that occurred in the play. So there was a couple of things that we really had to address during the development and rehearsal process. And something too that was really magical about the writing of Carolyn Tamantha is that, and this is one of the great things when you're working with a tight ensemble, is that the characters were something so personal for each one. It was cast so perfectly. All of the actors were like, oh wow, this is really unique. There's just something resonant about this character and so personal that made it really accessible and at the same time artistic, right? And such a pleasure to explore and find and develop during the course of the week. And unfortunately, because of this illness, we're really disappointed that we weren't able to bring it to the audience. But, as I was saying to Anita, we're all artists, and sometimes what happens in the room when you have a great run through, it's good enough, because we know that this is going to continue to grow and develop. So there'll be a next time. So thank you for that.
And what you're seeing on the screen are photos. Thank you, John, for taking these photos, Mr. John Deal, to be able to share at least a little few of the images around the process with you. We are out of time. The plan was for all of us to go to dinner now and then to talk over dinner with these wonderful women about the things that they've been through and the things that we showed and the things that we shared and the things to come. So, big wedge.